My official Rambler rating is a 0 out of 10.
I spit. I actually spit.
I'm holding my word. I warned Pierce Brown in my Dark Age review that if I didn't get at least a single Volga chapter, the next book is a 0 out of 10. I didn't get a Volga chapter. 0 out of 10. No, unacceptable. Unacceptable. I warned him. I said no Volga chapter. 0 out of 10.
The audacity for him not to listen to you after the book was published.
I know.
Welcome back to another Tutor Ramble episode. I'm one of your hosts, Austin.
And I'm the better one, Richard.
Well, guess what? I'll let you get away with that, Rich, because we're doing my thing today.
We are. I'm being very kind. I'm letting him do a Red Rising book review.
Book 6 of Red Rising. We have been on a journey together.
When did we start reading Red Rising in the series?
This summer. Sometime this summer. Was it? I don't know. But it has been, this is book 6, and there's no other book out until Red God. Red God will be the last book of the Red Rising saga.
When's the estimate for when that's released?
He said soon. Pierce Brown said soon. What does that mean? I don't know. But with Lightbringer, we will be talking spoiler-free for the first 5 to 10 minutes up to Dark Age. There will be spoilers. Yep. We'll be spoiler-free for a bit. Then we're going to get into all this talk because this has been highly anticipated from the Ramblers out there. You hate that we're naming the fans Ramblers?
I do hate it. Yeah. It is cringy.
What should we
Just
name
like democracy. Sorry. I'm going to squeeze that in any chance.
Every time. Because you got to sell the merch that comes out in like a month, right?
Eventually. Yep. Whenever that comes out, I got to sell my thing.
So this book has had a lot of hype.
Yep.
People are saying Lightbringer, the best of the Red Rising saga. Book 6 had a lot of this. It took what? Dark Age came out in 2019. Lightbringer came out just this year. So 4-year pause. For Pierce Brown, what he did with Red Rising, Golden Sun, Morning Star, again, they were much shorter books, but he published one after the other. And then this one took the longest bit. And you and I saw Pierce Brown in person when he was doing the whole publicity and PR for
I got this book signed.
Yeah, it's signed, isn't it?
It's signed book. It's great.
Admit, Pierce Brown's awesome.
Oh, he's great.
He's such a good guy.
Oh, love the guy.
Oh, we talked with his team to have him on the pod, and they did respond, but it was like an email chain, and then it kind of got lost, and they forgot about us. I reminded them about us.
I do want to apologize. That's probably on me. They probably looked at our videos and went, maybe not. Maybe not this one.
They looked at the Red Rising review, and that was the reason. I wouldn't blame him, honestly.
Yeah, fair enough.
But he's so well-spoken. Such a great dude. And it got me even more excited in person hearing him during the Q&A talk about Lightbringer and just go like, what he went through to write this book. It was a daunting task where he said he basically wrote 2 of these books before this final version. Wrote a book, scrapped it, wrote a book, scrapped it, and then came out with this one. It was that difficult to write.
I kind of get it. There's a lot of setup between Iron Gold and Dark Age that things were set up, and I imagine it's really hard to put that all together for this book. And we're going to talk about, I think there's, from this book, and I'm just speculating here, that there were some choices that he made in Iron Gold that he regrets. And that this book, for me, is more like confirmation that he regrets a couple actions and is trying to correct it going forward.
Say even in Dark Age, there's some decisions he made.
True, there is.
Yeah.
But I think not only Iron Gold, but also in Dark Age, there's a little thing that he sets up and then it feels like it's abandoned in this book. And he's like, he didn't like that direction. He wants to take it a new direction. And so
we'll get all into that in spoilers. Staying spoiler-free briefly on where we left off in Dark Age. Dark Age left us with Darrow lost. He lost the Battle of Mercury, about his lowest. And I noticed a pattern with Pierce Brown's books, at least the first trilogy. And then you could consider, before the Red God comes out, Iron Gold, Dark Age, Iron Gold, Dark Age, and Lightbringer being a next trilogy. It will be it's a quadrilogy after that, a quintuple.
Isn't it?
A quint. Yeah, a quint.
A quintuple?
Yeah. So in this sequel trilogy, if you noticed, you start with Red Rising, and the second sequel series started with Iron Gold. the next book in them, so Golden Sun and Dark Age, both ended in your bad guys, Empire strikes back, the bad guys win at the end. So where Darrow loses to Lysander in Dark Age, where Darrow, end of Golden Sun, loses to the assassination of Ares, of Fitchner / Ares, of Lorne, of Victra, almost dies.
The imprisonment.
The imprisonment. So you have that moment. So I'm noticing that pattern where he likes to end his second book on a everything's over. And then one of the critiques that Patrick Leo had, Patrick, amazing booktuber, one of the critiques he had of Dark Age, which we love Dark Age, was that it was so dark that what it did was took away the ability that it took away one of Pierce Brown's really big advantages in writing, which is to make dark moments, but also have that glimmer of hope.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll be honest, it carried into Lightbringer for me. Things are just so dark and heavy that I really don't like the supposedly hopeful moments just makes me think, nah, I just don't believe in the hope. Like anytime a character like finds a way to find hope, I'm just like, nah, you're stupid for believing that. This is all going to end terribly.
Well, that's why it's so relatable for you, because when you read a book like Dark Age, it's almost representative of your life.
Thanks.
You read that and went, this is nonfiction. I don't like this.
I don't like it. Every route leads to the bad end. I don't like that.
So we're leaving off now. Going into Lightbringer, spoiler free, it's an 8-month jump into Lightbringer from where Darrow was left off. In the very beginning of the book, we see that he's on these outskirts of it's described really well. Do you remember the name? But basically, things were shot out toward the sun.
They're on the outskirts of the Kuiper Belt.
Kuiper Belt, okay, yes. And he's on one of these asteroids, and you're starting off with Darrow at a very, very low here.
Well, in an odd way, he's in a low point, but normally his lows are physical and he refuses to change or believe. Like there's a stubbornness to him. In the start of this book, he is broken beyond, but there's something else in there of like, man, everything I've done is like led poorly. I'm finally willing to change, which is interesting for Darrow. He finally realizes I'm going to need to take a step back in my own mental approach to things.
Right.
Which I don't know if that's particularly low. That's almost like a step above. Like he's already taken the first step of accepting he needs to change.
Let's say this. The circumstances are dire, and he's not in a good strategic position. So his character arc and everything that goes forward there is different. But he is not in a good spot to win.
No. He's not.
It's not looking good for Darrow. Again, very relatable for you, Richard. Things could look better. And so we're starting off Lightbringer with this. Whoa, where are you going with this, Pierce Brown? And again, Pierce Brown maybe didn't even know where he was going with this.
In fact, they had to scrap it 2 times, yeah.
And here's the thing that's so great about Pierce Brown and his style of writing. There's flaws to it as well, but the great thing is you don't run into the thing you do with Patrick Rothfuss and George R. R. Martin, who... Yes, they plan out a lot of things. I don't know their exact writing process, but I do know they will be so perfectionist with things. And there's something that's holding them back from finishing that next book that's taken over a decade. Whereas Pierce Brown, he might redo it and scrap, but he has this writing style where he's going to get the book done. And maybe perfect's the wrong word. Like he is striving for it to be great, but he's not a stickler on... This was published. Did you get what I mean? Of
his mentality, his mentality on writing, is like Darrow's mentality that he learns at the end of this book.
Don't spoil it.
I'm not spoiling anything, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah. I just mean that he definitely wrote this a couple times and figured out a lot of the right direction to go, but he also wasn't too stubborn about it.
No, he was willing to change. He was willing to not be stuck to the past of his books and willing to just drop some stuff, change some new things.
Exactly.
That make it go in a better direction.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm trying not to be too spoiled. There are things, you're beating around the bush perfectly. That's the perfect way to say it. So let's get into our spoiler-free rating of the book. So Richard,
you want me to go first?
What'd you give Lightbringer out of 10? Now, before you say this, Chip, shout out to you on the Patreon, gave this a 10 out of 10. a lot of our patrons, a lot of our viewers were saying, best book of Red Rising, best book of the year, Lightbringers, amazing. And people on our Patreon, by the way, Rich, you want to do a quick plug?
Oh, yeah. We have a Patreon. If you want to join us for a book club, it's a lot of fun once a month. And actually, it's starting to turn out more than once a month, actually. But we do a book club with you guys, discuss a book for like 4 hours. It's great time. For the month of December, we're doing Empire of Silence, the first book of the Sun Eater saga, not trilogy.
Saga.
There's a lot more books in it. And it's a lot of fun. Join our exclusive Discord, chat with the community. It's all good fun.
We're actually having a Red Rising discussion sometime next month in January as well. Just about about the first trilogy of people who've read it. So why not, right?
Good.
So I'm just saying this to hype up the fact that this book is like, people are floored.
Yeah.
Floored. Everybody clicking this video, watching is going, I can't wait for Richard and Austin to talk about this.
Yeah.
Richard, what's your rating?
My official Rambler rating is a 0 out of 10.
I spit. I actually spit.
I'm holding my word. I warned Pierce Brown in my Dark Age review that if I didn't get at least a single Volga chapter, the next book is a 0 out of 10. I didn't get a Volga chapter. 0 out of 10. No, unacceptable. Unacceptable. I warned him. I said no Volga chapter. 0 out of 10.
The audacity for him not to listen to you after the book was published.
I know. Why couldn't he just email me a quick little chapter that I could stick inside my book?
What's your actual rating?
I want that to be the official one.
Oh, that's the official. Let's put right below that 0 your
a little asterisk
unofficial
of
one.
The unofficial one as a 7.05 out of 10.
Just a milquetoast 7.
Milquetoast 7.
You're here. You're chilling.
I'm chilling. I got positive things to say.
That's great.
I'm feeling good. I'm honestly not negative in this book at all. I'm just not like
floored.
Over the moon. I like Dark Age more, but this is certainly way better than Iron Gold. So
yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Rich,
I'm gonna be positive Richard today, except for every time Volga comes up, I'm gonna be a little upsetty spaghetti.
You don't like upsetty spaghetti?
No.
Oh, that should be another T-shirt. Upsetty spaghetti.
I feel like that's trademarked somewhere.
Yeah,
I'm not the original person that made up.
No, but we can take it for our own. That's what we're doing.
Like
what do you think our whole channel is again? Come on, it's just
a
taking
great
things
monarchy. People don't have rights. No. People don't have property rights. We can take it.
I mean, it's domain.
Ours.
Actually, they're building a sidewalk outside of our house.
I don't like it. I'm not a fan.
Also, it's not our house. We rent this house. We don't own anything.
It interrupts my style.
My style, as you wear like a new. This is actually the least dressed up you've been for a podcast episode. You don't care about Red Rising reviews.
I do normally try and dress up.
Wheel of Time, you got button up. You're like, what's up, guys?
I gotta look.
What's up,
good.
guys? And
this was my T-shirt.
Yeah. So you're a 7. You're 7.05.
7.05.
Really a 0, but
really a 0. But what is yours?
Now, everyone who loved the book so much came here because they know I'm the Red Rising stan.
You are. I'm expecting 11
like
out of 10.
9, a 20, right? My Rambler rating is shocking because I very much agree with you. In some senses, I give it a 7.75.
What? How?
I think.
But you're the Red Rising stan. 7.75.
Yes. Here's my thoughts of the book. Now, hey, keep listening on for the full thoughts. We're gonna get into spoilers right after this, but spoiler free. This is a real good book. I've really enjoyed my time. Like, seriously, good book. Not without its flaws. I think there's some things that we will have a good discussion with. And people that really were floored by this book that gave it 10 out of 10, hear us out, maybe. Hear us out. Because I'm going to give accolades and praises where I think Pierce just does an amazing job. But I think we're going to agree on a lot of points for this book.
It sounds like it.
But I with saying that, there are 2 books I could not be more excited for in my life, and it is Red God for this 7th book. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I want it now. I want it right now. And Stormlight Book 5. Those 2 books are the ones that I will not consider taking unnecessary risks with my physical health for the waiting of these 2 books. That's why.
You understand, 2024 is going to be a banger year. It's a banger year for books.
Let's hope Red God comes out in 2024. We got to go to Sanderson, his convention.
We are.
We have to.
We have to.
Last thing before we get into the spoiler section. How would you rank the books? The 6 books from best to worst. Now that we know what our ratings are, what would you say is the best? What would you say is 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th for Red Rising?
Well, according to my Rambler rating
Of course,
system,
which is correct.
Yeah. I actually have So I have Golden Sun.
Yeah.
Is number 1 at 8.2. I have then Dark Age at 8.15 out of 10.
So close.
So close. Then I have Morning Star at a 7.7. Then I have Lightbringer a 7.05. Then Red Rising at a 6.55. And lastly, Iron Gold at 5.35.
Interesting. We have close. I have Golden Sun, then Red Rising, Dark Age, Lightbringer, Morning Star, Iron Gold. That's my first, last. We agree on the first. We agree on the last. There's some differences in the middle. Mm-hmm. And maybe upon looking at the whole series now, those will change. Maybe the order will change with us after we think about it more. But that's the initial rankings that we had. Mm-hmm. And I want to show you one last thing, okay?
Okay.
Teasing once more to go into the spoiler section. I want you to watch this little snippet from our roommate Justin and his thoughts on Lightbringer, okay? Here we go.
Hey, roommate Justin, what'd you think of Lightbringer?
Lightbringer is a great book. You know, I really loved the characters. I loved how he, made all the adventures happen in this one. Not as good as Golden Sun. Not nearly as good as Golden Sun, but really a great book.
He looked so nervous.
He was nervous. He was so nervous.
I think he's a little camera shy.
No, it wasn't just that. I was like, hey, Justin, right before I record this, just make it look like I'm holding you hostage. You have to say Golden Sun's better. That was the shtick.
Does he like Golden Sun more?
He does, yeah. That's his favorite as well. He also really liked Lightbringer. Mm-hmm. Okay, spoiler warning. Are you ready to get into spoilers, Rich?
Yeah.
Spoilers for Lightbringer. Starting off, first category, emotional impact. Would you give it out of 10?
I gave it a 7.
It's flat 7.
Flat 7. I could be convinced to lower it just a smidge.
Lower it? Okay, I gave it 7.75.
Okay.
So I think you're about right with that.
I feel like I'm about right. It'll be interesting. It'll be coming through the discussion.
Yes.
I was not into the story for a while. Oh. It took me at least 200-ish pages till I started getting into the story.
Okay.
For me.
Which affects how you just emotions.
Yeah, but while I was into it, I enjoyed it, but I could very easily put it down and start other things.
Okay, because when we're talking emotions, obviously what's it intending to make you feel? What's the intended emotion? And a lot of this book was focused on war, but also friendship and the hope behind that. But it's very centered around the politicking and the plot twists galore. So it felt like a very epic, space opera with interweavings of why the small things, like character focused on friendship and redemption and these kind of themes. So did those themes hit or miss? Where were you looking for the book overall?
So some of the themes that this book was trying to show, focusing on Darrow, is Darrow was going through much more of a stoic journey that he's normally used to, delving into his emotions and using that as fuel and just kind of running his head into a wall to break it down. Now he's realizing that, hey, emotions are a part of life, but you can't be controlled by it. You need to make a logical decision, accept these feelings, but then act upon logic. He's taking a little calmer route, which is good. So stoic life, also a big part of the last book, Dark Age, and then also this book, is the difference of fighting for life and valuing life itself rather than just winning. And so that happens several times, choices where maybe you could win, but it would sacrifice so many more lives. It's not worth it.
And that themes with not just Darrow, but Virginia in the battle as well. Every character has to deal with this, and your villains take it one way, your heroes take it another.
Here's the thing, is Darrow and the good side are valuing lives today are more important than hypothetically prosperous, healthy lives in the future that don't even exist yet. Where society and Lysander are constantly justifying everything they do with, oh yeah, I may kill 1 billion people today, but like the society that I set up will be saving billions in the future. And it's like,
it's the whole
You're
utilitarian.
killing
It's the utilitarian perspective. The ends justify the means.
well, the
And
big one is utopia versus reality. And utopian idealism justifies literally anything, because utopia is the ultimate good, meaning you can kill billions and that works out in the scales. And where Darrow doesn't believe it.
In the end, that's so. But even Darrow has had his faults throughout the books. Remember, we destroyed the Rim. So it's not. Our heroes also aren't blameless. Far from blameless. Darrow's far from blameless, but he's more of the hero. Just like Cassius, from Darrow's perspective in Golden Sun, when he's fighting him in the Galasine, he says about Cassius, he might not be the villain, but he's my villain or my antagonist, whatever word he used there, which is a lot of the case because we're getting Darrow's point of view.
Sure.
Because that we have more of a connection with Darrow. He's done a lot of atrocities, yet he's less blameless than someone like Lysander is. He's less than Atlantia because they will go beyond all doubt, beyond all repercussions. They will do no matter what.
Here's the big thing between Atlantia is like evil because she's doing it out. Her reasoning for doing awful things is also awful. Where at least Lysander is self-delusional in his atrocities. Like, he truly does believe he's doing it for a noble cause, and his cause is more noble than Atalantia, where she's doing kind of out of pettiness and out of just pure
Atlantia's is selfishness, and Lysander's convinced himself that he's selfless.
Yeah.
Which is not the case.
Exactly. It's self-delusional, but
which makes it such a fascinating.
There is a difference, though. Yeah. Like, yes, on a slight gradient scale, he's better than Atalantia. However, it's not that much of a difference.
Well, when we get more into characters, because this emotional part of it, the message that this book was giving, and we're beating around all these themes. I'm going to break this down. There's a lot of things in here. You could take different aspects from each character arc, whatever, and say there's this, but I took 3 different points of view that this book is trying to get across.
Okay.
There is the Lysander point of view of being the shepherd of the lower colors and protecting them, kind of like Diomedes thinks as well, which we'll get more into his character, but he takes it a different way, of course. But we must be the shepherd for these lower colors. It's for their better good. I will do bad things now because it's for this utopian society. You have Darrow's point of view for the Republic and the revolution that he started to begin with, that, hey, it's the ends don't justify the means of what they're doing to us. The whole conflict between those two. And then you have the third option.
The right option.
The option from Quicksilver, who essentially takes the Richard philosophy and says,
it's all done.
He says, democracy is cringe. I'm yeeting out of here. Goodbye.
When Quicksilver just yeeted out, I was like, that's the correct option.
That's the solution.
That is like, I'll be honest, the whole color system is just awful. All of it's never going to work. I have no hope for it at all. I'm with Quicksilver on this.
Did you see what that mob did on the Day of Red Doves?
Oh.
I'm out. I'm taking Mateo, and I'm taking my capitalism, and I'm going there. It's just, that's it. Oh.
And also, the best thing is, like, none of the, they're all just human. No more color system. They're just human beings. And we're going to go have our own society somewhere else, away from all of you.
Yeah.
Correct option, Quicksilver. You did the right thing.
So we're left now with Darrow and Lysander to pick up these pieces of what actually do with
the
world.
It's a great setup for?
Yeah, what's that?
That the last book just ends with Darrow and Lysander just choosing, you know what? This whole thing's a wash, and just using the chemical weapon on all the colors.
Oh.
Not gold or red, just all the colors. Like, wipe it all out. We're going to trust Quicksilver Society to carry
And the very
forward.
last chapter is an epilogue with Quicksilver
Yeah.
and all the people prospering.
Darrow sends a letter out there. It's just going like, hey,
everything's done. Everyone's dead.
You're completely right.
Yeah.
We just decided to kill all of us. Like, that's now. Like, you guys are the last humans out there. Good luck.
And Quicksilver looks down at this prosperous society with billions of people.
Yeah,
just like,
they have their strife, but not billions dead in just constant
No.
hierarchical
They deal with
fighting.
normal things like taxes.
Like, oh
it.
darn, my taxes are a little too high this year.
Oh,
Oh
jeez.
man, we have some crime, and like, you know, man, sometimes the police are really too harsh in certain areas. But you know what?
I'm gonna pour some tea in Boston. That's what I'm gonna do. Damn, are we making fun of our own?
No, just our actual history pales in comparison to the whole Red Rising.
It's a brutal world.
It's way worse.
Yeah.
But I'm agreeing with you. Quicksilver was right.
So that's the three different perspectives we're kind of getting, and obviously it all dives into the themes of this book, which are war and the cost of human lives and what is worth it. Do the ends justify the means? And all these things are beat around. But you want to get into characters so we could talk more specifically about where all these arcs went, and so forth.
I did want to.
Oh, one last thing. Go ahead.
One last thing with
yeah.
its intended emotion. For me, the amount of death and suffering and constant betrayals got me feeling a little bit numb to everything. So when something terrible happens, I don't think I felt the intended emotion. I was not surprised with Cassius's death. I also wasn't like completely saddened at it. I was like, yeah, it's gonna happen. Like, so much betrayal happens, and I'm like, yeah, of course. Someone does an atrocity. I'm like, yeah, okay. Like the horrors that Darrow is feeling with or Lysander with the Obsidians doing all these crazy things. I'm like, yeah, this seems normal. I'm numb to it. I'm not feeling the same emotion anymore because it's not special.
Okay.
The atrocities are just like part of it.
Let's start with Cassius when we talk characters, but to stay on that for emotion-wise, there's almost a yes, I agree. If you weren't heartbroken when Cassius died, he was definitely intending that. But something that you're saying there is almost a huge props to Pierce Brown in that you're feeling this emptiness of there's so much going on. You're feeling like Darrow is in a lot of the sense of there's so much carnage and so much brutality happens that when you see a scene when everyone's dying or this, you feel like Darrow does. Like I no longer feel how I felt in Golden Sun when this was a big deal to Darrow. You are in the character arc along with Darrow of like, when the hell does this end? When do we get to the next thing? And Quicksilver, you were right. That part of the emotion
To bring up the Volga moment, like Volga turns out toward the dark.
Okay, let's go to characters. Let's go to characters. What'd you give character rating out of 10?
I gave the characters a 7.25 out of 10.
I gave it an 8.
Okay.
And I have a brutal thing to say about the characters, but I want to start with all the good.
Okay.
And let's start with, we were talking about Cassius and Volga. Let's go with all the important characters. We'll try to hit as many as we can. But starting with Cassius.
Sure.
So what was your point with Cassius if you didn't feel that ending there?
I just wasn't emotionally attached to it. Like I get all the points. Like I like Cassius. He's definitely has one of the most unique voices from the whole book. Where whenever he's talking, I'm always having fun with him. I loved when he was on the page. It was very enjoyable. But when he had that heart to heart with Darrow,
You knew it was coming.
I was like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah.
100% he's dead. Death flag, he's coming. And when it happened, I'm like, yeah, of course. And I just was, yeah.
I get you.
Death is a part of it. Like, all the people are going to die. Honestly, if any of the main characters died, I'd be feeling about the same.
So I know a lot of people out there felt like they cried during the end of this book. And I'm reading reviews. I'm seeing people that were just floored and heartbroken with Cassius dying. I'm on your camp with this series being one of my favorites. I also wasn't. I love to cry during the book. If a book can make me feel like that, like you floored me. Mm-hmm. But I didn't either, and I think the reason is I'm trying to logic why. If I love Red Rising so much, I think the reason is I kind of almost grieved him in Iron Gold because he basically we had the death. Lysander's point of view, we thought Cassius died, and it was an off-screen death. We didn't exactly know, but it was more so of okay, Cassius is gone. And then he was brought back this book and then gone again, almost feeling like, oh, you brought him back and he's dead again. So maybe that emotional part of our brain is just thinking like, oh, I kind of already dealt with that. And it didn't help that we didn't like Iron Gold.
Sure.
So maybe that's combined why we have a similar feeling. Because I know a lot of people out there love this part.
To give you another point is I think a lot of grief with a character's death is knowing that they should have gotten more, that they deserved more life after that. There was more for them to do. When Oh God, we can't.
Don't spoil. But
There's a lot of different spoilers with. I'm trying to
different
think
series.
of
There's
okay.
a certain character in. Can I say the book? It's not a spoiler if I say the book.
which
right?
one.
Yeah, I don't want to. There's a.
Nah, we can't say that one.
Then
Let's
I'll
try
bleep
and think
that.
to Red Rising
Okay.
of Lorne. I
Yeah.
think I felt Lorne's death more because there was more for him to do.
Well, I would say maybe more so for like Fitchner too. Because
Fitchner,
Lorne was
too.
at the end of his life, but there was that sadness I had for someone like Victra. I felt where I thought she died, right?
Sure,
Where
there's more.
Victra, there was so much more, and then her last breath to Darrow being
Ragnar.
it wasn't me, Ragnar.
Ragnar,
Those
like
ones
there
hit,
was
yeah.
there was a story there too, and you knew like if not for this moment, like Ragnar would have a story to continue on. It would be very interesting and fulfilled. With Cassius, I always felt like he's done. Like his story is done. He's got there. I don't see much of a future for him really, other than like tertiary character. Like it was right for him to die in this one.
It was, but then the people who were affected by this death, maybe the point of, hey, Cassius and several finally made up. The point of going forward with Cassius, Darrow, Diomedes, them all being bros now, and seeing what the future could hold, and him living to the end. Him living to the end and having that happy ever after, because his character here, I have some. What did Cassius want? He wanted redemption. He wanted to be. Several says it best when they're having their argument. He says this line. He says, "You claw for an eerie chance to be the hero because you know you'll always be the villain." Cassius he failed Lysander. He failed him completely, and now Lysander's turned into this. And he was with Lysander for a decade. He was on the wrong side of the war before he killed Ares. He killed Several's dad. So he was on the wrong side, and now he's kind of trying to make up and be what is the honorable, what is the right thing to do, and he's constantly trying to be the hero. And so his ending made so much sense because he's like what he says when he's dying to when Lysander's about to kill him. This is what he says. Cassius says, "But if it must be guilt that drags you down, brother, I will be your millstone." That's what he says to Lysander before he kills him. So I'm going to be he's doing his redemption arc of I will be your millstone. I will be the guilt you keep thinking about. I will sacrifice myself to be the hero, to redeem myself from the wrongs I've done. I didn't lead you correctly.
I do have to say that needs to happen in Red God. Lysander's fall needs to be in part due to him killing Cassius. That needs to gnaw at him and cause him to mistake. It has to. If it's just Darrow winning the day, or like.
Do you want to transition right into Lysander? Or
sure.
Because we got to hit a lot of
characters.
We got to hit a lot of characters. So what do you think about Lysander with this book?
He goes from bad to worse in a good way, where he's lost a lot of his stupid idealism and has moved far more in just to the. He feels like he's pot committed, and he's so stuck into the utopian idealism that he's lost all of the kind of good stuff that he had. The one admirable quality is he admired the people of the Rim, and to the golds of the Rim do have some admirable qualities. Diomedes is admirable. Like they live in their system of government is not right. It's not just. Of course, all that. But comparing them to the core golds, there's something to admire.
For example, let's do a quick tangent, go right back to Lysander, but Diomedes, and he's a static character in the sense that he's an honorable guy. Like static is not as a negative term. Just he doesn't have an arc. He doesn't have a huge dynamic. Just everything changes for him. He is honorable.
Well,
he is. Yeah, go on that.
What's best for him is he believes, like Lysander says he does, about the golds being the shepherd.
Yes.
And for him, it's about the role they play. It's the outcome of, hey, we are here because we are smarter. We have a longer lifespan. We have all these things, and we should provide and make the lower all society better. When he realizes, hey, the system we came up with failed miserably.
Can I quote that?
And
for
that's
you?
the point.
At the end of the trial, remember when Darrow's giving this impassioned speech at the trial when they're taken by the daughters, and he's saying this and this and this, and then Diomedes goes up to the stand and he says literally, Civilization is based on exchange and social contracts. I was taught that the low colors exchange liberty for security and stability. We have failed to provide security. We have failed to provide stability. We have failed you. The contract is broken. Take your due. When he realizes that they have failed,
Fair enough.
so his point of view was, we are doing something good for these low colors. We are benefiting them. And then look, they did not provide any of the things in the social contract they promised.
Yeah.
Whereas Lysander takes that and goes, hold on. So going back to Lysander, Diomedes was a great character in this book.
Oh yeah, the fact that he
really
realized
shined.
he is going around the right path of, hey, what's the point? The whole point is actually serving your society and helping people. And the system I followed didn't work. Okay, I guess I'll try this other system because I failed. Our color failed. Let's try your way.
Right.
Because all right.
Whereas Lysander, then the big change he makes in this book that clicks in his head, I think, is when he's giving the speech, when Gilstrates is hostage and Atlantia doesn't think Lysander will say anything in front of everybody to rally people to go to Phobos. We'll talk more in plot about all that. But Lysander says in the speech, I wonder, where have all the shepherds gone? In their place, I only see wolves and sheep. Because he sees golds as these shepherds, of course. But I think throughout Lightbringer, he sees, okay, our shepherds here have turned into either wolves or sheep. Where have the shepherds gone? I am the only shepherd. I am the only one who can lead these people. No other gold can. The Rim has failed. Atlantia has failed. I must be Lysander Aulun, Silenus. I must bring back the history of the golds, and I am the only one who can get the job done. So he thinks it's now a lot more egotistical. Rather, before it was a lot of the golds, it's now I must start this new age. Or maybe not go back to the old age, whatever term you want to use.
And it's the arrogance, I think, of especially his youth, that he's failed so many times and he causes all these atrocities. Like, why do you think that that's going to stop? Like, you're not the shepherd now. Why do you believe that for some reason you being in charge is going to be any better?
But it makes him such a great villain, though, because you completely understand his point of view, and we're inside his head. We get his perspective a lot, and what makes a great character and character really shine is you could think of a decision in the world. You could think of if something happened to that character, how would they react? You always know how Lysander would react because he's written so well.
Yeah. The one thing that I'm kind of realizing, though, is with the amount that he's betrayed by the core golds and by golds in general, I would think at some point we'd realize like he's not on the good side here. And he's constantly, it's a weird perversion.
Here's the thing with that. I had that thought in my mind too. Sorry, did you have more to that?
No, that's basically it. Like, I'm going, why does he not see, like, the problem is with golds?
I think I have the answer for you. Because there's these two scenes that happen. So when he was talking earlier on, what he looked back on fondly, he was thinking about Virginia in a certain scene because he was going to negotiate with her. But he was like, oh man, I remember really respecting Virginia when I was young. I was in my youth. And he enjoyed walks in the Palatine's Park. This is what he would say. And so one repetitive thing that he goes is when he's making these bad decisions, when he's doing things that are evil. And he goes after, in one of the scenes, I can't remember which scene, but right afterward, he goes, I wonder if it'll all be worth it in the end when I'm walking in Palatine's Park. Or something like that, where he just goes, I remember my youth and how perfect society was and how my mother, the sovereign, and look, there was peace. Everything was so great. And his whole entire life from 10 years old into his 20s now has been nothing but constant war and destruction because of this republic. So in his point of view, everything was great. Revolution happens. Nothing has ever been good. It's constant awful and evil to him.
And yet he says that out loud that like the society is the reason the revolution happened. And he says that like a gold's failed. He's right. He says that, but he never really believes it. Like he's actually always thinking positively on, you know what I mean? That's that dual thing. He may say.
Well, here's the thing. The core golds failed. The Rim still had things going pretty well. So maybe he saw the light in like, oh, us core golds failed in the sense of that we didn't treat them as properly as the Rim does. Because you know what? Something about the Rim that was more admirable is when they have rationing, the golds also ration. There's more of a sense of, yes, it's still wrong what they're doing to the low colors, but there's a more quote unquote equity, or there's a sense of
there's
honor
actual action behind the flowery words
Yes.
that the rim says. Where the rim says like, "Oh, hey, we're the shepherds," like the whole honor thing.
there. Yep.
Gold does that too, but it's all theater.
Yep.
At least with the rim, like it's not all theater. It's still wrong, but yeah, they at least do have a sense of responsibility and try.
The fact that Diomedes exists almost doesn't prove Lysander's point. It builds to his reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to go on to another character because we want to hit all the big ones here. So Darrow, let's talk Darrow. We got to.
Yeah.
We can't miss Darrow. So what did you think about him, his character arc?
Felt right. His new Zen mentality, following the path, all felt right. You needed 2 books for him to be beaten down low enough where it's not something he could just fight his way out of. He has to change his mentality. There were several moments and scenes where he made the opposite. He made a different decision than what he would have in the first trilogy.
Right.
And I liked it. My favorite scene in this whole book was him and Quicksilver. That was my favorite scene of the whole book, is that moment where he realizes Quicksilver is abandoning the Republic, like all these resources that he took out of the Republic and made this new society, Noah's Ark.
Which you very much support.
Very much support. It's great decision. Perfectly right decision. But he realizes that there is no, from Quicksilver, there's no more hope. There's nothing to get out of this. There is no ships to help his family. And yeah, old Darrow would have just fought and beaten up Quicksilver and tried to take what he can to help him. And then he realized that now new Darrow's going, if I fight him, I'm not going to get anything. There's too much, that would be pointless. This path is closed. What is the next best available path? And realize just accepting that Quicksilver made his choice. There's nothing that can be done. Ask him for help, of what can he provide? And Quicksilver is able to provide a good bit. Helps Darrow out to a significant degree.
The daughters over here.
Here, I'm going to give you intelligence. Hey, that's really helpful. Hey, I'm going to give you this new fighting tech. I'm going to retrofit your ship. He made the right decision. And that was that was a good moment. It's one of my favorite moments for Darrow. Actually, real change. And that happens a couple of other times.
Like another time it happens where Severo and Cassius are fighting and they're having their whole brawl and Archimedes in the ship. Darrow sits down and watches them fight and goes, I will wait for them to finish fighting and then I will scold them.
Nothing can be done. There's no, I can't make them get along.
It's more of a stoic approach.
Oh, yeah. No, it's great.
It's this Willow's Way has some stoic elements to it.
Well, the thing is, the Willow's Way is his old one where it's all about, so the difference was standing in one place, the willow tree. It's rooted into the ground, but as an attack comes, able to bend and counterattack. But you're still in your same spot. It's all about being able to redirect the flow, but it's still attacking. Right. His new mentality is being able to change and move from his spot, not just how to perfectly defend your position, but how to move positions, how to completely change. That was the big change for him. So idealistically, now it's not, hey, how do I make my plan work? It's how he's able to just change the plan completely.
Right. And he has this more prudence rather than the rashness we know Darrow to be for how many books now, right? So he's finally being more prudent about things. And that's great. And so this is the thing about series as well, of why it's more acceptable that his character arc very much is right from the get-go and beginning. You already see this arc happening. Now, the scene where that's not as apparent is when he fights the Minotaur and he's getting beaten and bested because he's being a little bit rash here.
A little bit rash, but also just stuck in his ways.
Yeah, he's still stuck in his ways. So you have that moment to show he still has a little bit growth to do here. But the book, for the most part, he doesn't fail too much in that direction. He's very much being more prudent and thinking things through more and making the better decisions as the book goes on. But what I mean by it's more acceptable, because this is a 6-book series, right? Imagine, I think if this was a book 1, that's less of a satisfying character arc. Whereas there's 5 books now, we know what Darrow's been like, and his rashes in this. And now this is an entire book about him holding back that rashes and starting to learn the Willow's way. So there's the benefit.
He knew the Willow's way. Now it's the his new fighting style is called the Wind of Stone, like the Wind of Stone or something.
I forget the exact name. You might be correct. Yeah.
It's something with stone and wind. Or
I've been saying Willow's way, so I've been wrong about whatever word I've been saying. But yes, so this whole book is pushing more and more into that character arc direction, which is great.
Yeah, I felt deserved. Yeah. I'm a little worried though that like Darrow's like there character wise. I'm a little nervous that his character arc is about done. And there's a whole book.
He'll die and Pax takes the lead from there, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
It's going to go down to Pax.
Or someone else where I'm going, I think he's in a good enough mental state that even if he loses Severo, he'll pick up. Like, it's not going to be as debilitating for him anymore. He's in a healthy enough mental state that he can handle loss and move forward. That I'm just not sure where his character goes.
I'm curious because when we're thinking of the basic structure of a character, flaws, wants, needs. For Darrow, what does he want? He just wants to ride off on his motorcycle with Pax, right?
Yeah.
That's what he wants. But isn't that also what he needs?
Kind of.
Because I think his wants almost align with his needs here. Like where does his character end? What else?
Character-wise, I think he's almost good.
Right. What else does Darrow need in book 7? I'm sure there's more.
I mean, at this point, it's external problems.
Yeah.
I think he's just about solved his internal problems. Maybe there's some kinks to iron out, but in all honesty, he's a much healthier person. He's accepting. It's all good. Maybe he has to. But yeah, I really don't know where his character's supposed to go from here.
That's what I'm so curious to see where it ends because what does Darrow need?
Yeah,
that is obviously the external stuff. Yes. But what else does he need internally? But want to go on to another character and a few more big ones, and then we can go into plot here.
Sure.
How about we mention very briefly? We talked about Quicksilver enough.
Yeah.
And let's move on. Maybe Severo. Severo's a very important character in this book.
Yeah.
So what did you think about Severo?
I was annoyed with him almost the entire time.
Annoyed.
All of his quirks in the first trilogy became very, very annoying in this book. Incredibly so. Here's the thing, and his annoyance and his character was worse before he knew about his son's death. And then when he had his son's death, he was angry and justifiably so, and at least understandable. And then he changed. And then he got a little better.
Okay.
But before that, he's actively just not good. He's a bad teammate, he's a bad leader, he's a bad everything. He's a bad friend. And all the little quirks about him, I don't enjoy him. Anytime he's on the page, I don't like him being there. I was happy when he was getting on the ship with Lear to go home with tail between his legs. I was like, good, awesome. Now it's just Darrow and Cash, just better characters. I want Severo gone. I wanted him gone. And he didn't leave.
Is that you didn't see where he was coming from?
Not completely. I saw it was just annoying. And mainly it's... He should know better. He really should. All this time, or the fact that he's constantly going, oh, you're just a terrible father, and I just want to be a father to my kids. I'm sitting here going like, Mars is under siege. How do you not understand that you going home helps nothing? How do you not get that, Severo? You've been at war for this long. If the Republic doesn't win, all your family's dead. Why the hell are you not helping? How are you not willing to give everything you can to help the Republic? Because your whole family's dead otherwise. And constantly shitting on Darrow and every plan and constantly being a negative. And that's before his son's death. Before he realizes that. I think all of the little quirks of his personality, all the the animalistic and just all that stuff that used to be cute in the first series is not cute when he's an actual older man. It's not cute at all. It's annoying.
I think a lot of it is, and we're going to talk something in plot here, but I don't want to go too far ahead. But with Severo's character, why I think I understand where he's coming from. So here's what I have for some of his notes of why what his flaws are. He's bitter and defeated, and that comes across as you're saying you don't like that. Like you don't like how you think the quirkiness he had in the first trilogy was a lot more admirable and cute. You're saying than it was now. But one thing he says, this is a line about him saying to Darrow. He goes, Orion, Harnassus, Alex, Rona, Daxo. We don't know if Pax and Electra are safe. Not for certain. Maybe they're dead. Maybe my girls are next. Maybe Victra. Maybe Virginia. Shit, we couldn't beat the core in 10 years. Now it's the Rim too. So I think his thought is they just went through a decade of war where they couldn't beat the core. Now it's the core plus the Rim. And so I think his mentality is like, it's over. It's this defeatingness to him where he's just done and he just wants to go with his family, not to, because yeah, you could fight, but he's almost hopeless. He's hopelessly just going like, fuck all this. Shit, done. I'm gonna be this. And then when his son Ulysses dies, he doubles down into his character arc. Well, I thought it was an interesting arc. Like I thought it was definitely, it was pretty compelling where he's taking this approach of there's two different people. There's your Severo and there's the Goblin. And when Ulysses dies, he's like, okay, you know what? Goblins who my family needs right now. They need someone that the enemy's scared of. I just need to be the Goblin. My own wife didn't tell me when she had the chance that Ulysses died. I wasn't there for her to actually protect them. I just need to become a savage again, and like goes through that arc and then learns.
I'm happy that was quick though, because that I've seen that kind of done of several. We even have that in Stormlight, kind of the fake multiple personality stuff where like, oh, I'm gonna shut. I'm glad it was quick because Darrow shut that down of like, you're an idiot. None of that. Yeah. No, you're not the Goblin. You're not. You are Severo. That's what you are.
Yeah.
You've done all. I'm glad that was a quick arc from. It didn't go for a long time.
Yeah, I think it was an appropriate length. Right.
Yeah.
But you don't see that point of view of why Severo feels all this, because again, when Severo and Darrow are taking this war differently.
Yeah.
And when we saw Pierce Brown at giving his Lightbringer review or his Lightbringer press conference when we were at the bookstore, and one of his Q&A, he was just saying when it came to Iron Gold and Dark Age, of Darrow after the 10 years of war, and the decision he made in Iron Gold was, hey, to protect Pax, I just have to end this. And then Severo's point of view was they're taking different point of views as fathers, and Severo says, hey, my dad Fitchner dead, and he's not there for me. I'm going to be there for my kid. That sort of thing. So they're taking this war completely differently. Mm-hmm. And yes, I think it's good to like Darrow's point of view more, but I guess the frustrating part about Severo, like, yeah, I wanted him to be on the right page and be hopeful, but that's what makes the ending better.
Thing is, I the fact that he's just kind of pussyfooting around it and not really actually going home and protect, like, he still participates. It's just.
Well, you see this defeatingness, right? That you don't understand. You get why he is though, right? Like
I guess so. But if he was truly defeated, doesn't believe in the Republic anymore, okay, go home, protect your kids.
He was going home, but then Ulysses died, and that flipped the switch. He was going home.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess I get it more now. I still didn't like him anytime he was on page, and this is further not just his motivation; it's all the weird Severo quirks of him just like causing a mess and like being mean and not like the whole Goblin Severo personality that he has is not cute in this book, and I was annoyed every time he talked.
That's fair, because there's books and characters that like you love. Like there's some in Wheel of Time, for example, where you take them and you really love the quirks. Or I can take the Wheel of Time character and go like, all right, let's get through this.
Tell him with the quirk.
I can totally relate. If the character doesn't connect for you and you're just not there, something's not clicking. Sure. It just doesn't click.
I think mainly his character voice. I didn't like his character voice on how he talks, and it was grating.
Let's touch on that in dialogue prose more too.
Fair enough.
Lastly, let's cover some last big ones here, like Lyria. Lyria's a big point of view. What are your thoughts on Lyria?
Yeah, I think Lyria seems almost like the mistake character. I really don't know where she's not much of a character. She's more of a plot vehicle. And she's a main POV. It's very strange. So I know in Dark Age, they kind of set up this whole Lyria has the parasite thing in her, and she's going, so she can become more interesting to the plot and like contribute. And then this book immediately taken out. None of that. and you go, okay, she's going to contribute in another way, and she's going to contribute with helping Volga. I get, yeah, it's there, but it's just a really small piece that I forget a lot of her story, and most of her POV is following the other characters, and you're just seeing she's a vehicle to see our other characters from an outside point of view. I'm not interested in her as a character.
I completely agree with that point of her character seems very much like a plot device. Where you're right, when she's around. So one thing she does for Darrow in this book is when Darrow's giving the speech at the end in the trial, he kind of looks at Lyria and goes, wait a second, Lyria is someone who hated me once. So are these people that I destroyed at the Rim. The daughters are angry at me. I can convince them. If Lyria could change, so could these people. So it's like a moment where he said that because what Lyria does is I liked how she looked at Darrow. And this is what she said. She was saying, for a horrifying second, I realized what it must be to be like him. The man cursed to use the weapons of the enemy to liberate people like me. All for what? People like me to stand with their hands on their hips and scold him? All the anger I've had over the years dissolves in the reality of his existence. I wouldn't want to be in on an iron rain. I wouldn't want to fight a peerless guard. Kind of like meeting, and when she gets that initial look at Darrow, she goes like, wow, this is a big, daunting man. I wouldn't want to be in his position, which it's not like an amazing moment. It's not like I like seeing her around the other characters, and her relationship with Cassius is nice, but something about her character arc and just what we've seen over 3 books is really kind of quick. And her first chapter introduction in Iron Gold was like, wait, who was her family? That was like, what just happened? And then there's not this deep emotional connection with the things she's been through. And so when she goes and confronts Darrow, like, yes, her mind changes, like, whoa, this man is not what I thought. And yeah, sure, there was development over Dark Age. I'm really making this rudimentary. But I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure. The choir being you. I think the people at home hate us right now.
Yeah,
but
probably.
The choir being you of she changes real quick, and there's not a satisfying, like, oh, yes, Lyria's finally on Darrow's side, or there's not like everything came together, this is good now. She does seem like that mistake that Pierce Brown, when he's rewriting this book a couple times and he's looking, I'm sure there's a draft where he had the parasite doing something in the plot.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I feel like that was a direction he had a plan for.
Yeah,
and then abandoned it. And I know he was in this book. It's kind of trying to make a point of she's going a different direction than Daredevil. That doesn't want to be a weapon. She's not going to give up her memory. They tried to have that nice moment with her and Mateo, but to me, it felt more like, okay, he wanted to scrap that direction, go with something else.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I would have liked a Volga POV instead of Lyria.
You really would want a Volga.
Thing is, she had fascinatingly interesting story going on there. Would have been great to see. Would have been amazing.
I hated Volga this book.
Yes.
I hated her.
I want to know why.
Yeah,
because she was so great.
It made no sense to me. Go on with that.
She is in such a different place, and because we don't get to see any of it, it doesn't feel justified. I know Pierce Brown could justify it if we got to see it.
Right.
But
it was such a harsh juxtaposition from where she once. Look at me trying to use big words. Never let me do that. Always call me out on that, okay? Look, I'm trying to sound smart. Let me sound dumber. There was such a big contrast from Volga in the previous books of like, you don't think she would be that naive. She's smarter than that. And almost the incompetence of her believing that was just really frustrating to read. And again, I gave characters a name. I think there's great moments. We're talking about Darrow. We're talking about that. My biggest negatives, if we're just talking about characters, were Lyria, Volga. Those point of views were my big harps why this isn't a higher character score. And a little bit about Fa being a little bit less intimidating as a villain because of when it's revealed. But small things like that. But Lyria and Volga are the harshest I'm going to be on characters here because they didn't connect, and the whole Volga thing was just what's going on? And I'm sure you felt the same.
Yeah.
So
I was more emotional in what Pierce Brown did to my sweet summer child of Volga than anything else in this book. That was the biggest travesty. Cassius can go die in a pit. I don't care. What he did to Volga's worse.
Clipping that. Well, when we're talking about summarizing the great caricature, Darrow done really well. Loved Lysander. Okay, don't support Lysander. Just love his point of views. He's such a fascinating character. I like Severo much more than you did. Cassius, Diomedes, and I think the side characters that worked really well. Oh,
Also, the Fear Knight.
Atlas.
Fear Knight. Atlas is a really
Yes.
good character. He's a static character, but he reflects so much. He moves the plot. He gives us so much more insight about the world. And
Yeah,
the
the world. Yes,
love that a lot. His has some of the most emotional moments. Like what he pulls out of the other characters is great.
Yep.
His he doesn't have the banger lines, but man, he's just an
He feels
intimidating
threatening.
force.
Yes,
Always a threatening.
he's the Aja to the Sovereign, just like at the Atlas to the Atlantia.
Yeah.
He's that role, and he does really great. And I also, like we talked about Quicksilver, loved his point of view, and just Quicksilver makes so much goddamn sense as a character. That is how he'd react. It's exactly what he'd do. And Victor and Virginia talked briefly about them as well. What I really thought was effective, because really, when it comes to all these characters, they're all very unique, and they work in this huge, massive, epic scope. It's just impressive. You could see all these unique voices and get that done in a book like this. Where Virginia was she was a relatively small part about this book, but she had such a quick arc. Do you remember what her arc was? Because it was super quick, but I thought it was neat that it could get fit right in there.
Remind me.
Just her in the battle and Phobos, she was constantly making decisions that her father would have done. Like when she pulled the shield down and when she let the ships crash through and kill a bunch of people to save the shield so they could last the fight. And she's doing little things here and there of like, that's a decision Adrius would have done. My father would have done. I did the same thing. And she's constantly making decisions in this fight. Another one here's a quote from her. Amputations on the field are best done without consulting the patient. My father said that once. At the time, I thought it grotesque. So she's making these decisions constantly of like, oh my goodness, I'm making decisions my father would have done in battle. But then when it comes down to when Apollonius, the Minotaur, who we'll get more into dialogue because we have to move on the plot. But Apollonius, I think, was a great. His lines were really strong. Such a flaunter.
It's the most fun.
Most fun and intimidating villain too. So, but she's as Apollonius is coming for her. She said, "I'd send what was left of my bodyguards to create a distraction so I could slip out by myself for the Republic. That's what Adrius would do, or my father, not me, not today." So she has that moment where she goes, "No, I still have to stick with my people." It's a really small arc, but I thought it was nice that Pierce Brown fit that in with the battles going on, with her being a small portion of the book. I think Virginia is just a great character.
I like her.
Really like
I
her.
like her a lot more this book, especially than like Iron Gold.
Yes, and hey, we could talk about so many more. There's Foz we didn't touch on, Pax the Sun we did, Electra, Dido. There's so many, but I hope we covered the main one so we can get into the plot here.
Yep.
And you ready now? What is your plot out of 10?
Oh, Lord. I gave the plot a 7 out of 10.
Oh, my God. Hold on. Hold the phone. Richard and Austin have the same rating for a category. I also gave it a 7. This is my lowest, actually, of the categories. Do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. The tone of the book starts off with "I'm expecting action and sad deaths." That's what I got.
It was promised.
I got what was promised in the tone. How it starts off with the world before of how like the Republic is losing badly. It's losing real bad, and the whole thing is, hey, Virginia's sending off Darrow to go actually get help. That's how it starts. It ends with the Republic still losing bad, but Darrow's got some help.
Yeah.
That's the story, effectively. That's where it begins and ends.
Yeah.
And I guess that's fair enough. I liked quite a few elements of it. However, I never peaked. There were never these like huge bombastic moments. The big bombastic moments never truly landed for me emotionally. And so that's why I'm constantly like, this is really good. I didn't have any particular valleys where I hated it.
Sure.
But I also didn't have any things where I was super surprised.
Yeah.
I'm expecting betrayal out of every corner. It's more surprising that there's not a betrayal. That's the surprising part. Is like, wait, Diomedes actually sticking to his word? Huh. Neat. That's pretty surprising. I'm always surprised when people are actually not completely assholes.
Rich, you stick to your word. You every single episode you bring in that asshole. It's just that hey, we're very much on the same page for this one, but I think I'm a little bit higher than you.
Mm-hmm.
Because for plot, I hate to take that. I hate to take your role on this podcast for a second.
Oh, it's wonderful.
But I want to start bad just because I'm feeling spicy today.
Okay.
Why is plot the lowest? The things that, okay, preface, let's sandwich this. Preface with the genius of Pierce Brown able to writing the politics and wars as if he's been in a space battle. Is when we go into the plot and when we're going into the attack on Phobos, I'm just massively impressed with how he fits all these pieces together and the plot twist from Atlas and how it all weaves. Fantastic. Now, when that comes, this is a daunting task to write Lightbringer, and I have the privilege and ability to be a reviewer who doesn't have to actually write this. And I can just say, here's some things that frustrated little old me, okay?
We are not saying we can do better. We would do significantly worse.
Actually, I couldn't do half as good of half of what half of Pierce Brown could actually do. But just a few things, like when the book started, that I was questioning. I'm going like, "Oh, Severo wasn't okay." First thing is, where was the Abomination? Where was the Jackal?
It's
another one of those plot points that kind of went. Where was that going?
That's one of the things I feel like was a mistake. Like I
And
feel like Pierce Brown brought back the Jackal and didn't want to continue with that direction.
maybe our opinion in Red God, when the Abomination will be present, has to be, because it can't just be where the hell did that go?
He's going to do something with it, but
Maybe it'll
if
be
it's not
brief.
a huge part, then I feel like it'll still be a mistake. Like he'll wrap it up quick just to get it over with and done because he doesn't want it to be a plot hole.
Sure.
So there's two avenues. If he does it
Deliria
that way,
Avenue, right?
yeah, where if he's wrapping it up but keeps it small, I feel like that would probably be the mistake he's trying to correct.
Right.
If I'm wrong and the Jackal plays a really big role, a really significant role, and like just comes together,
Yeah.
then yeah, it was intentional. But as of now, it feels more like the mistake he made. He's trying to correct.
And here's the thing: there's so many antagonists and great antagonists in this book. Like you have to deal with Atlantia, Atlas, Lysander, Fa, all these people. So it's hard to fit another one on top of that. So I get the situation he's in. Like that's no easy task. And it leads to, I'm sure in the previous drafts, he probably had a bigger scene where he said the first 70 pages of a previous version of Lightbringer had several chapters. And I'm imagining those several chapters had something to do with the fact that he was in prison with the Abomination. Remember that? That's where it
Yeah.
started, where he probably has a whole plot in his head and on paper of what actually happened with that we just don't read and aren't seeing. So I'm sure that he's got something brewing. He knows where he's going with it, but could not fit it in this book.
That could be true as well.
That very well could be true. And it just had me questioning the suspension of disbelief for a second was like, oh, wait. So the Jackal sold several to the Minotaur. Wouldn't the Jackal, or at least this clone, get more value out of him? Like, was the money worth it? I'm sure there's a reason for it, but because it wasn't stated, because it wasn't as clear, I was just going like, ooh, all right, well, I'm going to hold complete judgment until Red God, but it's just something to note and go, that was missing from the book.
The fact that, he sold him for just money? I mean,
There's more to
Jackal.
it. There's got to be more to it.
The Jackal has to know that Severo is Darrow's best friend. Of leverage to have over Darrow.
Right.
That's it. There's only Virginia and Pax that's higher priority, maybe. Yes, definitely.
And that motorcycle. He talks about that motorcycle.
He talks about the motorcycle quite a bit. But yeah, to give that away for just like money seems short-sighted.
Yeah, and so the two missing elements of this book seem to be the Lyria plotline that was just like dropped, and the Abomination wasn't there. So that it was odd. It was odd, but there's so much to juggle, and just to that moment where Severo comes and saves Darrow and Cassius, the duel and stuff was just like okay. So it was a strange start. So to start off with that bad, now getting to obviously the more good of what was done so well with this plot of, yes, we were promised in this book there's going to be a lot of politicking and betrayals, and you're getting another epic sci-fi saga, space opera. Did that deliver as the book was going through? What moments were great to you? What didn't work? What did work?
Almost all of the surprises didn't work. for me.
Okay.
I don't. I'm trying to think of twists that worked. So the twist of Quicksilver, I saw it from a mile away.
Which twist? The fact that he was going off with Homo sapiens? Mm-hmm. Oh, you saw that he was going to leave.
Oh yeah, no, I saw that there was going to be no fleet.
You knew that was his plan?
No, I just knew that there was going to be no fleet with Quicksilver.
Okay, I thought the reasoning though was very.
The reasoning was great. I enjoyed all that, but
Yeah.
I'm just trying to show the twist because the fact that they teed up Athena, the fleets, but we're going to go do Quicksilver's because it's easier. So like now you have 2 fleets, and I'm like, they're not going to do both because if you have Quicksilver, you don't need Athena, and they're not going to just. He's not going to. Pierce Brosnan's not going to drop that. So something's going to happen. Quicksilver isn't going to have the fleet. There's something off there. So I already knew, like, going there, like, that's going to fail. So that's another thing I knew was going to happen. Cassius' death. Knew it was going to happen quite a while. When he had that moment with Darrow of, like, them bonding and, like, that brother moment. Like, Cassius is dead. Like, there we go.
So you saw them coming, and that hurt it for you. Okay.
And I think maybe the only one that was pretty surprising, though not shockingly so, was Atlas' betrayal of the Rim.
Gotcha.
That was probably the one that landed the hardest. But everything else of all the other portrayals of the fact that Lysander betrayed Diomedes and Darrow, saw that. I mean, it's like, I wasn't surprised.
I guess why...
The very beginning, the fact that Severo was not in the cell and that it was a trap. Saw it coming, knew it. Like, it was constant.
Someone like that, I think Petra said this in his review as well. Like, yeah, he saw a lot of it coming, but it was still so satisfying. And even though people saw Cassius' death coming, it still hurt because of the effect on other characters. Mm-hmm. So I totally see that point of view. I'm with you. Most of it was... predictable is the wrong word because all the politicking things meshing together. It's like, no, you didn't know Quicksilver's plan. No, you didn't know that they were going to attack Phobos this way, and then Lysander would go and follow, and the Atlas would do that. So there were those kind of twists. Whereas I think what Golden Sun and Dark Age did so well why I like Dark Age a lot more. There's a lot to it, but 2 moments like the Day of the Red Doves was a shocker. And
I was more emotionally connected to those moments because for some reason they landed better.
Yeah,
the deaths were more emotional to me, even though I didn't care as much about the. That's something off there. That was a far more emotional scene to me than Cassius's death. I felt nearly nothing with Cassius's death. I was like, that's sad. That was it.
Maybe to go back to your point of it was coming to his end, whereas the Day of the Red Doves was just, wait, they had a plan. I wanted to see what this would come to fruition, and then boom, cut. And then like another surprising moment where it's very controversial in the Red Rising community, but the Jackal coming back as a clone, I personally loved that.
I did not.
I loved it. I was all over it because of the build-up, the subtle hint from Morning Star, and then it coming to fruition in Dark Age was... And I loved the Jackal's character so much. What got me so excited is going, okay, what's the Lightbringer going to do with the Jackal? He must have some grand plan, which we'll see in Red God. But it was a moment. So anyways, with this book, some of the twists were maybe more expected for you. But is that why they didn't emotionally connect, or what would you say was bad about that? If you see it coming, does that immediately go like, I'm less interested? Or how's that work for your head?
It just fit all too neatly together. That I just was not.
It was written it made too much sense, Pierce.
Well, no, it made sense.
Yeah.
And so everything felt right, and it didn't. Nothing was like a wrench into the gears and going, kind of shaking the table. Because Pierce Brosnan's normally really good at just shaking the board. And now it's like, oh my God, the plan's got to change. It completely upends things. Mm-hmm. Where everything kind of went along.
Okay, so one of your expectations when reading a Red Rising book is there's going to be things I didn't see coming.
I didn't see it coming, and even if I do see it coming, I don't see what the results of it are going to be.
Okay,
the whole board has changed. Where the rim being betraying Lysander and betraying the Rim, does that change much for Darrow's side? Like Darrow's kind of just going like, neat. I guess this is good. Like it wasn't like that doesn't change much for Darrow's side. And then for Lysander, it changes quite a lot for his character. But in all honesty, things kind of continued on the same path they were going to, just a different way. Because ultimately, Lysander got what he wanted in the end. The exact same thing. It just a different way of getting there. And that frequently happens. So, hey, Quicksilver's fleet is not there, but we're going to go get Athena's. So I didn't feel the board being shook up.
Maybe the most negative thing we can say about this book that I'll agree with, unfortunately, is it seemed like when Pierce was writing this book, it's extremely hard task to get this done. It seems like when he was writing this book, he went, for example, I want Severo and Darrow to be together. How do I get them together? Okay, I cut out the scenes of the Abomination sells them, and then I'll have them at the Minotaur, and then that's how they'll be together, and that's how I'll get them to the moons of Jupiter. That's how I'll get them there, rather than the mindset of these are characters that are real, and I'm going to let them make decisions that they would competently make and see where it goes from there. And then the wrenches and the things that get thrown, the storytelling of this happens
And that,
this happens, therefore this happens, but this obstacle, therefore this. Whereas if maybe in his head, again, I want to talk to Pierce so bad on this pot, and then let's hammer into it. Let's go, Pierce. What were you?
I want to show you, compare a difference.
Yeah.
Golden Sun, where it starts to where it ends.
Yeah.
And starting off at this high, and then Golden Sun, you would never, ever predict that, oh my God, Darrow's secret's been found out, and he's now stuffed in a box. Like, what? Where'd this come from? It's just, I never see it coming. With the beginning of this book, Virginia goes, go out, get us troops and a fleet. We need fleet. Come back and help. At the end, Darrow has gotten a fleet and he's coming back to help. It's exactly what it said in the beginning. There's not, the twists and turns around to get there, but ultimately, we ended in a place that's not, it's kind of set up for the beginning.
The big picture thing. I'm
thinking Dark Age.
Oh, losing at the Battle of Mercury.
Oh my God! Where it ends, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you see that?
The build up in the beginning with Lysander versus Darrow and the duh. Yeah.
So from the beginning, I have no idea where it's going to end, and when it ends, I'm like, oh my God, how did we get here? And it makes sense, but it was surprising and fulfilling. This one, he did what he said he was going to do. It ended in a fairly predictable way. There's a lot of twists and turns to get there, but most of the time, these Red Rising books end in such a wild place.
And that point of view is definitely affecting us, that if Cassius's death didn't floor you. Because a lot of the pull in the ending is that death. A lot of it is Lysander. So the one thing I'm so ready for Red God, what this ends with really well is Lysander, you want him done even more. He's leveled up to a point of he's unforgivable, and how do you defeat him?
Well, think about it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Does the book change that much with Cassius's death or him staying alive? I don't think it changes at all.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing.
I think that's the reason why I'm not emotionally there is Cassius's death doesn't play an immediate role in the story in this book. I'm sure, yes, it will have lasting effects, but normally when an important character dies, it gets jarring for it normally
Fitchner died. You were going to help. Fitchner was going to help Darrow with the Sons of Ares and Morning. So that was the plan.
And now you go, oh my God, what do we do next?
Yeah.
What happens now?
For Cassius, he's not essential to the survival and the win for next book.
You feel more. Oh, I'm sorry for Darrow.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I'm doing push back and forth between. We both give this a 7. I'm very much on the same page with a lot of what you're saying, especially on this plot thing of I didn't feel the same things you didn't feel for some reason there. And we're trying to figure that out as we go through. A lot of negativity, but at the same time, here's a big positive. I want to turn the wheel of time for a second.
I gave it a 7 for a reason.
Did you hear what I said? I said turn the wheel of time for a second.
It was a poor use of it, but continue.
Thought you were going to say thanks, neat friend. Friendo using a book I like. Thanks, bud. So I agree. Yes, I agree with you. But the points that were so high for me, and that's so impressive, is do you remember the buildup of this book when you started to get invested that 200 pages in? Maybe it wasn't exactly 200-page mark. But the politicking of Atlantia and her reasoning and the competence of, I want my troops and my ships to still be alive. So she's kind of delaying this attack on the moon. And her political pawn piece is what she's trying to do versus Lysander versus the Rim wanting revenge, and how all those pieces are moving to the attack on Phobos. The scene with Phobos as well and Mars and the battle sequence there of how they kind of play this game. We'll talk more in world building about this. But all of what, like you said, all the pieces kind of fitting together neatly is both, no, it didn't give you the plot twist that you were looking for. And Red Rising is kind of known for that. Maybe the things were more expected, but it is a huge accomplishment to fit all these pieces together and go like, yes, that, and why the characters work so well is, yes, that character would do that. That makes sense. That Atlantea's reasons make perfect sense. That's why her movement is over here. It makes sense why the Rim's doing this and why Lysander's doing this. And so something about that is really satisfying, that the plot's such a coherent plot. It makes complete sense, even though we have our qualms with that was dropped and that was dropped. They were dropped for a reason, and the reason was to make this book work well and work so that you start, the job is, hey, Darrow, go get these ships and bring them back. So the journey is going with, the fun of the book is supposed to be Darrow, Cassius, Severo, Diomedes going in the Archimedes, and you're supposed to get this banter back and forth, and you love that fellowship, and you love that, and you get the ships, and now we're back, and we're coming for you, Virginian Pax. We're coming home. And yes, you're lamenting the fact that Cassius died, but we're coming. And I could see a different me really attaching to that and loving that. I'm totally with you on the emotional side, but I can, at the same time, it's not poorly done at all. It's really not.
These negatives is not being like, oh, it's a 4. No, it's a 7. It's well done. It's really well done. It's different from kind of expectation. And maybe to try and get an analogy out is what I liked with Pierce Brown's writing is it's like you're building a puzzle, but super zoomed in on the puzzle pieces. And you're putting pieces in and you go, but you don't know what the puzzle looks like yet. And then at the very end, you zoom out and you go, oh, that fits perfectly together. But you only zoom out in the end. You only see the full complete picture at the end where it all makes sense. This one, it felt like we were building a puzzle piece already zoomed out. Like I saw where it's going. Everything fit into place. It all fits well. The puzzle's made, but I didn't have that zoom out moment of, oh my God.
Well, except for Atlas and his planning. Because that was a bit of a zoom out moment where we figure out there's this weapon of mass destruction that kills every color.
Yeah.
It's called what, the Enemy?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think about that plot point at the end and going into Red God?
Oh, when that first came up, I was like, yeah, the gold, like golds need to die. That seems like a solution to everyone's problems.
You're done.
I'll be honest, I'm a little defeatist where I'm going, yeah, the Republic should use that against the golds because they are the problem.
Now, to finish a plot here, there are those big moments like the trial moment for me and Diomedes' line at the end. I really connected with Diomedes.
Same here. I really enjoyed Diomedes.
Really did, and he made a lot of the plot very interesting. And some of when we're getting, so all that progress happened in the book. What we think we're on the same page of, we really liked the battle and the politics.
The battles were fun. Very enjoyable action scenes, well described. I, again, became numb to the death and the horrors. Is that the point? That
caveat, yeah.
That could be the
caveat
point
of, hey, you're feeling like Darrow. I think that's part of it.
That could be a positive, but it also means like when something terrible happens, and the characters are going, oh my God, how terrible! I'm going like, yeah, it seems kind of par for the course. I don't know. When a character's horrified, I'm not horrified with them. I'm kind of like, you're surprised?
Yeah, what's going on here?
This is normal. This is a regular Tuesday.
Yeah, it's 7:00. So what are you doing?
Yeah, a massacre. That your regular scheduled Tuesday massacre.
Keep it going.
Keep it going. We're going to be here next week.
That when it comes down to it, the payoff of the book, was it all worth it?
Darrow's, I think, on a character and how the plot takes it with Darrow's character, very satisfying. I liked seeing him back on top when he was fighting Fa, and really cool moment of him being like having idle thoughts while fighting, which is interesting, of him in that flow state of just going like, I wonder what he's paying attention to other stuff. Like he's not even have to focus on the battle much anymore, which was interesting, which is a good parallel to Lysander's mind's eye thing. They both are kind of they both got there in very different ways. You know what I mean? How Lysander is hyper-focused on everything, so everything slows down and he can think on all this stuff now at once. Darrow is kind of there as well, where things feel like they've slowed down and he has time to think about idle things, not focused on the battle. So Darrow has almost his own version of the mind's eye, but it's far more Zen-like and not oppressive. Like the mind's eye is like almost hyper-focused, just this intensity, where Darrow's is just Zen. But both accomplish similar things.
Yeah.
So
you
cool.
Love the payoff with Darrow.
Love the payoff with Darrow. I enjoyed all the scenes with Cassius of him just talking, all of his banter around, him bouncing off of Severo and Darrow and also Diomedes. All good stuff. All enjoyable. So
yeah,
I liked it.
I think you'll agree with this. The payoff portions that worked and were worth it was when we got the Darrow Lysander, their confrontation at the end, that little meeting Diomedes put them into.
Yeah.
That plot moment. And hey, when Lysander kills Cassius and looks down at them and is making an excuse to send bombs while he's having the meeting with the Rim and just nukes them. Not an actual nuke, but just bombs them to death. That moment too. When we got the back and forth with Darrow and Lysander, and those moments were great. I think the lowest payoff portions were when it came to Volga and Lyria. When it came to their plot points of Volga, why are you making these decisions? And something was even Fa. Was it just me, or is the Minotaur a way better antagonist than Fa? When Fa turned off that voice box, we figured out he's working with Atlas. And I think, wait, so he killed Ephraim Gray and he killed Sephi previous. Like, sure, she's an Obsidian. We know he's done bad things. But I wasn't really fearful of Fa as the final villain of this book. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, no. Him becoming such a fraud mainly made him just like, when he became the coward at the end, it's like, he's a fraud. And
so Darrow did shine, and a lot of people reference that clang, 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 that scene. And definitely well written, but the plot movement of it wasn't that we got in previous ones, which I'm curious.
Him confessing is not as big a deal of like having that kind of moment, like confess and just like this moral triumph and just like the social dominance that Darrow has over Fa is kind of expected. Fa's a coward. Having that over someone like the Minotaur, would be much better because he has much more prideful and just a strong will, where I don't see Fa having a very strong will.
Just like in Game of Thrones, the Viper versus the Mountain. You killed my sister. You admit it's and this Mountain, he's just a beast of a man. He's just what the hell is he got? So it's trying to do that moment, and Fa being such a coward. Yeah, you're right. Wasn't satisfied there. Again, looping it back into does the plot end in a way that you're very excited for Red God?
I'm definitely more excited to read it than I was at Golden Sun. I'm actually more interested. I'm more happy to continue on than I was after Dark Age. Dark Age, like I liked it more, but it ended off in a spot that was hard to get me to start to read Lightbringer. You know what I mean? Like it just ended on such a dour note that I'm like, I don't know if I'm like excited to read Lightbringer. Glad I did. Enjoyed the book.
Is it
but
good?
Now I'm more excited to read Red God.
Right. So I'm trying to remember how the book versus movie ends. So Lord of the Rings movie, and Boromir dies, and this is Lord of the Rings. Everyone, come on. So Lord of the spoilers for Lord of the Rings, I guess. But when Boromir dies, and then we have that moment of reprieve at the end where, we have Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli get together and go, let's go kill some orcs. Da da da, and whatever song's played, and then we have Frodo and Sam have their moment on the boat. So there is the low moment, but then that climb going into the next book that gets you to go to Two Towers. Now I'm trying to remember, I know in the books Boromir dies, I think, in the Two Towers.
He does
in the very beginning of Two Towers, but how does it exactly end? Does it when the orcs are coming or something of the sort? So maybe it's something where you don't have that everything's over moment and then goes to the next one, whereas but Golden Sun, similarly to Dark Age, ends with everything's over. does that give you the same feeling Dark Age did? Were you not curious to go in the Morning Star? I'm trying to
Golden
explain your own
Sun was
reasonings.
almost like, I gotta know what happens next. I don't like, oh my god, he's completely trapped. It's like back against the wall completely.
Okay.
And everything's against him. Dark Age, he survived. He got out. So it's not that immediate sense. It's just more dark and dour.
You got the dark without the hope, but
also none of the immediate. It wasn't immediate. Like, I know Darrow's down, but he's not like completely trapped. He got out. It's not the same thing as Golden Sun. Golden Sun was more immediate. Immediately, action has to happen. Where with Dark Age, there's not that immediate action.
To use Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers, the books end with, and then Frodo was taken.
Yeah.
Or the books, so it ends with that. What's happening next?
So if you don't have the hope, I want that immediate action.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But this one, you got the hope. So I'm looking forward to see.
You're ready.
I'm hopeful to see the next one.
Okay. I'm just trying to explain your reasoning. I think it makes sense.
I think so.
I think I see where you're going.
You know, if it's the Darkest Night, if you end the book in the Darkest Night, I want either like completely back against the wall, like what's going to happen next, like immediately next, or add a spark of hope, a little something. Empire Strikes Back at them looking out, like,
okay.
You gotta have something.
Dark Age was right between the everything lost and the hope, where it was just like everything is lost and you're leaving. So.
Yeah, like, imagine if Golden Sun ended with him just then getting out of the box.
Gotcha.
Like, yeah, he's at his darkest moment character-wise. All that he's lost, but also he's not like immediately threatened.
Gotcha. I understand your point of view. Okay, we got that hashed out.
I'm more excited to read Red Gun. I'm looking forward to it.
We're excited.
I'm excited.
All right, let's get into dialogue prose then. What'd you give that out of 10?
Oh, Lord. Go through. Dialogue prose, I gave a 7.25
Okay.
out of 10.
I gave an 8 out of 10. Very close to each other here.
Yeah.
And one thing to acclaim for his prose is the unique voices. You said something about unique voices earlier. Did you not think that? You said Severos.
Severos was annoying.
Okay.
The others were... I loved Cassius's unique voice. He was always fun when he's on the page. Diomedes was a surprise. I loved Diomedes' voice in this story. Great.
Minotaurs.
Minotaurs, always a fun time.
Virginia, Victra, all of them have clear, distinct voices. Mm-hmm. And Darrow, I want to just say 2 paragraphs from Darrow. I read this from the book, and I immediately went and exercised.
Okay, good.
Immediately. You know why? Because I was sitting, I was like, oh, let me read, because I do booktube, and I think I'm cool, right? And I started reading this, and here's what Darrow says. This is the beginning when he's training. I almost turned back around. No one will notice if I take a day's leave. No one will dare say I didn't work hard enough. I yawn again. Maybe just a stretch today. Body could use it. Better to face tomorrow rested. I almost cave. But I know by now that voice of reason is the enemy. Inside me there is a coward who fears discomfort. That coward will offer solace in the form of excuses. But it is the coward who grooms a man for his defeats. The coward who makes him accept them because he is accustomed to finding a good reason to quit. The coward inside can only be killed one way. I toss down my pack and don my training kit. If that isn't just
That's good.
If that isn't workout motivation 101,
we need to have 2 to gym. We need a gym channel. It's just us doing workout stuff, and like it would be fun.
How much do you relate to that mentality of when your mind is trying to tell you to stop, just don't do it. Be a hedonist. Do this. Enjoy the temporary moment. Don't
Every time you walk down the stairs into the basement, you see me laying on the couch over there. That's
Rich,
the coward
Rich, get your ass
wins.
up. We got to record Lightbringer.
Yeah. That's the thing. The victory every day is when you win over the coward inside you.
I don't.
And the lazy.
I like that. I don't know if this is a quote out there, but this is what I like to think. I've tried to emulate my life off of just the fear. Like, what's your motivator? Let me say this before I say what I'm about to say. What is your motivator, Rich? What's your
motivator?
Prime motivator. Some people's motivator is money. Some people's motivator is pride. Some people's motivator is family. Like, what would you say is a motivator for you? other than trying to be, buddies with me, I know I'm a great influence on your life, and it's just,
Avoid self-disappointment.
I like that. You don't want to be disappointed in yourself.
Yeah.
So sorry.
I'll be honest, that's kind of like, I don't want to look in the mirror and like
Maybe
look down on myself.
maybe I'm not just talking about like, I'm just talking about life things in
no.
general, because I don't know if this is a saying, but I was talking to myself going, why do I do things?
Sure.
There's a lot of reasons. Family, friends, parents,
Gun
loved
to your
ones.
head.
But I was just thinking, I was like, you know what? The fear of regret. Why do I stop doing something that's temporary in that hedonism? It's the fear of regret outweighs the temporary discomfort of discipline. And
Very good.
I was thinking about that. I was going, you know what? Mark, I don't know. Someone that wasn't me probably said it. I was like, ooh, that sounds good in the mirror. Oh, yeah.
I'm sure Marcus Aurelius said
Yeah,
that.
he probably did. I'm just ripping off like every quotable site ever. But
Hey, they're correct.
yeah, they
It's
are.
not.
Yeah. So Darrow was saying that, and we have we're gonna agree his battle sequences, very cool. Do you want to talk any more about dialogue prose or get right into world building?
Let's
I
get
think
right
it's
into
enough to
world
just talk
building.
about Darrow's motivation. And all right, world building magic. What'd you give it out of 10?
I gave the world building a 6.75 out of 10.
Oh, so our biggest disagreement. I gave it
Probably.
an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, it's
Wow.
especially in this book, I accept most of the stuff that goes on, mainly because the world just kind of starts feeling more like magic. Like the technology itself is just like, whenever they come up with something, I'm just like, yeah, of course. It could do, this new thing that does, yeah, sure,
The
why
enemy.
not? I'll be honest, they come up with like, they find out a teleporter. Sure, a teleporter could be in Red Rising. Why not? Anything could exist in Red Rising universe. There's no rules. There's no bounds to like the technology of it. I'm just okay. And for me, the world feels more like generic fantasy with unique elements thrown in rather than a completely new coherent sci-fi world with its own style.
Okay.
And that's even more so with this book. Like, I'll get my biggest negative on world building. Jupiter felt the exact same as Mars. If you subbed out the name Jupiter for Mars, I would have believed it. It doesn't feel any different. There was no distinct look, feel, nothing. Caves, like, it's just like, I couldn't tell. You could be on Venus, Neptune. I don't know. There's more moons, I guess. It didn't feel any different when the battle on the moon around Mars felt the same as if it was on Mars. I couldn't tell that it was on Mars's moon, not Mars itself.
I get your point of view. So I disagree definitely with the moon one. Of like, for example, the Phobos. Let me see. Because when I was writing down the world building, Phobos impressed me actually. So here's what it says. Let me find it. So Phobos, when it was described, goes, it's not a big moon. There's hundreds of star scrapers pierce the moon's crust. The rich live in the needles at the tips of the building. City population density grows as you go closer to the surface of the moon, and it thins out as you go to the belly of the moon, the hollows. So, Quicksilver built these monuments for Darrow all over the place, but for the battle setup, there's these needles of star scrapers, and the rich are on the top, population center density in the bottom, hollows in the middle. So when the bombs are dropping, and like the 3 different stages of where the battle's going on, and then Apollonius chasing you, and where the less population is, where you're hiding the people. No, you don't get the exact. We're not in Phobos every day, but I think Pierce really sets up the scene really well to get you. Okay, I know where these locations are in the general scope. I got 1, 2, 3 locations. Okay, they're in these different sectors. Sector 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not. I
didn't image the sectors like of any complete difference.
I'm with you that it's quick. It's definitely different, unique enough. I don't think it's that as generic as you're saying. I'll disagree with that. But I could totally get behind you with, I'll agree and disagree. Like the Jupiter and Mars, I get your point. Where Pierce, I think he loads the description at the beginning, like he'll explain the scene and the landscape really, really well. And go, hey, here's Jupiter, here's the moon here's Io, here's Ganymede, here's, what was that the thing that they needed to survive the guilt. The
Kuiper belt?
No, not the Kuiper belt. That was described well as well. I'm forgetting it. The food source for.
Oh,
It started with a G, didn't it?
Ganymede?
No, not Ganymede. Anyways,
Garter.
The garter. Yes, you got it, the garter. But there's definitely a sense of. Here's why people question, why did I rate Red Rising and Golden Suns world building way higher than the sequel trilogy even, or at least some of them like this? I still think it's great. Something about Red Rising and what I give to book ones especially is the wonder they create in your head and the curiosity, where Red Rising set you in this new world, this gritty world, and you're questioning, okay, I won't get into all the world building Red Rising, but the start of there's these miners that are mining for helium-3, and the golds have been lying to them, and they have this institute to train. What's this society like? Why do they eat food that way, where they keep 20% of their meal? Why do they do that? There's all these questions, and I go in my head like, what's this society like? And he goes in the sequel trilogy he does a great job describing a bunch of things in the grittiness of this world, but sometimes when that's revealed, it's like, okay, got it. And maybe when you see your Jupiter location, to go off of you, and to your Jupiter location, Mars location, it's not as different. It's not as crazy as, describing Lothlorien versus the Shire, where they're very clear. Totally get that. And part of that is because I don't think Pierce is going for that world first. He's definitely not. World's a great feature of it. I'm not as harsh as you are. But I can get that point of view. I can totally get your ratings that you didn't feel like it's super well.
I frequently got confused on where I was. I don't the Phobos one. I probably just missed and just forgot about the description in the beginning, because when I'm seeing in my head Sector 1, honestly, I'm just kind of thinking planet and Sector 1's over somewhere, and then there's Sector 2. I just kind of thought of it as surface level.
Gotcha.
I didn't know. I forgot completely about the spires and that Sector 1 is a spire, maybe. I had no idea. It was just...
Okay, that's fair.
Things were happening and it was planet-like.
That's fair. Some of that too. Okay, then...
And then Jupiter, same way. He does the description of it's a gas plant, all this stuff. And I'm going... But then when it gets down to it, not much is... I don't see how this one was really any different than Mercury. I didn't feel any different. There was no particular... They're supposed to be very different planets or cultures. It just didn't feel any different.
Mercury, that was more Dark Age for sure. I don't think we got much we didn't get any Mercury in this book.
I know. I'm just comparing both of them.
Mercury to me felt okay. Let's not go into all that. But with the the world movers, the world, what are those? Oh, shoot, what Orion used to kill everybody.
The storm gods.
The storm gods, yeah, and that. Anyways, that was my favorite feature of Dark Age. That was amazing. Sure. Where with the best parts about the world building in this, because I think each author, when you're building a world, you sometimes have to focus on certain things. So what Sanderson does, he focuses on the geography and the magic and the economy, how that all intertwines, and the plant life and fauna, and that's where it sprouts from there. You
want to show that difference.
Oh, yep. Go ahead.
Sanderson, very distinctly, it's a Sanderson fantasy world.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely its own thing. It requires complete investment. It's all Sanderson's thing. With Red Rise, I feel like you are leaning on the understanding of sci-fi books in general and just high-tech things. And so Pierce Brown's relying on previous knowledge of how sci-fi things work. Mm. And then he adds his own elements.
Oh, you make a great point. Yeah, I'm with you on some of the technology, the technobabble of, hey, here's this gadget. You don't, and even in Golden Sun, these books where it's just, hey, here's how you fight with this thing. This thing, these leechcraft, you latch on and you attack like you're a Roman going into the ship. Got it. That's how the battles are done. Mm-hmm. It's not anything crazy, but so Sanderson, that's what he focuses on. You have your Wheel of Time focuses on the history and how each cultures are interwoven, and I would say the history of the world is the main focus.
Yeah.
Whereas you could go to different series. What do they focus on? But then you could say Wheel of Time doesn't focus on the plant life and fauna enough for me. I want more of that, because Sanderson, I like when he does. I like how his stuff talks more about how the geography is affected. Wheel of Time doesn't. So you could have your preference. Where I think Red Rising does. The fault of it, if you're more of I want all these places to be super distinct. I think they're distinct enough for my liking, but totally get that. Mm-hmm. I visualize the scattered plains way more than I visualize some of these scenes, for example. But what he does really well in the world building is, one, the political sphere, the landscape of how all the politics works together in the Rim, Atlantea's, Lysander's, the Republic, and the discourse and the people that live in the world is really impressive. Because all of it works so well together, where I know maybe the Red Rising world isn't distinct as you're saying, but the Red Rising characters, I could tell you who fits in that world instantly.
Sure.
That's what
the society is very much well done.
The society is so well done, and to go off the backbone of the colors it's building off, so the different colors and their effects, and each book kind of builds upon that in small ways, so it's hard to give all the credit to Lightbringer.
Sure.
But there's these elements of where Pierce Brown doesn't focus on like the specific technologies, because he uses those for plot elements. But the culture and the society itself is really well constructed, and that makes it very believable. And that suspends my disbelief and gets lost in Red Rising world.
Can we both agree that the best world building aspect of this book particularly is Atlas? All the things that Atlas brings is the best aspect of the world building. All of his history of fighting at the Rim, the setup of Atlantean, how all these plans, it just leads this. Ultimately, you get far deeper insight in how these golds function. I love that throughout the entire series, it shows how the golds have manipulated cultures and history of the other colors to get them to do what they want.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the golds are at the top and doing their own. They have their own history, and it feels fairly like that's it. They manipulate each other, but just not. It's not that they're not manipulating their own history and culture to do it.
Right.
Atlas's plan is basically the golds doing it to golds. They're manipulating the history, the culture, and like giving a new. They're doing that whole manipulation that they did with the Obsidians, but now to the golds. And I love that. I love how now they're using their own tricks against themselves.
Right.
So great world building.
Alice was great for the world building and a bit of the history and finding out a bit more about Silenus, and was it Silenus, and the person started with an A. Attila? Was it Attila? Oh, I might. Akira.
Yeah.
Akira and Silenus, and how that WMD essentially that kills off the colors. No, so a more plotting. Robert Jordan would have done this. He would have had some subtle things that hinted to that in book one, probably, or book two. But where Pierce Brown, again, with that pantsing writing and the very plot and character focus and getting this through, does make that shine more. And so he kind of fills in the gaps as they come.
Sure.
It feels like. But that is what I get out of the Red Rising world. I think we're at a pretty comfortable spot, though, and what do we think about this?
Yeah. I'm surprised that we're kind of come about the same now. We're about the same level.
I'm a little bit higher.
A little bit.
Don't tell me I'm the same as you. Oh my God.
You think similar to me about Red Rising now?
No, it's not true. Don't say that. I love you, Pierce. But you can't.
You think it's a normal, good book?
No!